Alright guys, today I'm going to be walking you through my 4-piece Tactician Burst Seeker Mine build, and before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that this may not be the most popular build that we publish in patch 1.6. A lot of people may not like fighting against this, but in the interest of covering all things Division, we are going to put the build out there. It is about bursting down enemies with the Seeker Mine skill with the Air Burst modifier. It can one-shot agents, it's extremely powerful, it has decent survivability, and a lot of people may dislike it again, but I am going to cover it in build video format right now. The build is comprised of exclusively electronics, 5 different pieces rolled to electronics, and then every single mod will be electronics as well, but I'll cover that more in depth later on. For a chest piece, you want to be running Barrett's Bulletproof Vest. Particularly the first of the 3 different bonuses is going to be the most valuable, and that is when no skills are on cooldown, it increases skill power by 10%. You're routinely going to have this active due to your very high electronics and skill haste, so it is highly recommended. However, if you don't have this item, or if you want to have more survivability, you can switch it out for Rapid or Vigorous. Either or will do. For major attributes, it's quite simple. You want health and skill haste. There are no other options that are going to be more suitable. Skill haste is great for getting your Seeker Mines back, and health is great for increasing your survivability. For a minor attribute, ammo capacity is great, but you don't need to have it. You can run anything that you want in that slot, because the primary application of your damage is the Seeker Mine, and you don't really need to worry about using your weapon all that often, other than to charge up your tac bonus. For a mask, it's super straightforward. You want a Tactician's Authority mask that has electronics, you want skill power as the major attribute, and you want burn resistance as the minor attribute. If you can get all 3 of these, you're sitting pretty. That's a great mask to have. Moving on to my knee pads, I've opted to have health as a major attribute. There's a huge amount of value here, and it does increase toughness, so I do believe that that's the best in slot, and everyone should be rolling it for this build. For a minor attribute, I do not have it here, but burn resistance is extremely important. If you have burn resistance, since the Seeker Mine is capable of detonating on your own character, you will be able to mitigate some of the duration of that on-fire status effect and resume firing your weapon sooner than the enemy. So it is important to have burn resistance wherever possible on your gear. Again, I've rolled electronics like every other piece of gear, and aim for as high a main stat roll as possible. Moving on to our second non-gear set item, I am opting to run the Inventive Backpack. This is a percentage increase to skill power, which is phenomenal. Again, rolled as high electronics as possible. And for major attributes, I'm going with skill power in the major attribute slot. And then for a minor, I have ammo capacity. I would highly recommend having skill power here. It does roll in a high value. However, if you want to have health and increase toughness and survivability a little bit further, you are welcome to do so. However, skill power, again, is going to fall right in line with the burst fire one-shot mechanic that the Seeker Mine offers, and that is something that we are choosing to run. You're always going to be operating within your overheal whenever possible, which means that Inventive is going to have a huge amount of value, and it is finally functioning properly and will re-trigger when you reach max health, so it is the best in slot. However, if you want some unconditional skill power, you can go with the Specialized Backpack, though it isn't really worth it because you aren't speccing into firearms or stamina as a main stat. Highly recommend Inventive here. Moving on to my gloves, there's actually a lot of things I would change about this item, though they do fulfill the primary function of the build by having a high main stat roll of electronics. For major attributes, I would change everything here. Number 1, you want to have skill haste instead of something like critical hit damage or assault rifle damage. Skill haste is going to be really valuable to the build, though it's not essential on every single piece. It's highly recommended if you can get gloves, Tac Authority gloves in particular, that have skill haste to do so. Number 2, I would want SMG damage because I am going to be using a PP-19, though if you are using an assault rifle instead, then you're welcome to have assault rifle damage here. For my purposes, it's not that great. And then number 3, I would have health on kill or critical hit chance. So I would change a lot of things about these gloves, though by having the electronics that they do fulfill my purposes. Last up for gear, we have our Tac Authority holster, and this is an extremely straightforward item. You want to roll as high as you possibly can in all 3 categories, and then have skill haste as a major attribute. That is going to allow your skills to come back faster. Again, stacking it up across all of your different pieces of gear, if possible, will mean that you can spam out the Seeker Mines and you can spam your personal heal to keep yourself alive and one-shot enemy agents as much as possible. For a weapon, I am opting to run this enhanced PP-19, but for one specific reason, and the gun archetype does not matter at all for the build. The reason I'm opting to run it is because I have Talented in the 3rd slot. Getting a kill on a skill object or a player or an NPC will result in 15% increased skill power for 20 seconds. This is a phenomenal boost, and you can actually proc this at will in most situations, especially in Last Stand. So definitely pick up a gun that has Talented in the 3rd slot, though again, it doesn't matter what gun archetype it is. It can be a Police M4, it can be, a shotgun even, it can be a PP-19, it doesn't matter. Pick up a gun that has Talented in the 3rd slot. For all of my different gear mods, I'm opting to run electronics with skill haste. This allows me to increase my damage output by spamming my skills more often, and my survivability by having my heal off of cooldown more frequently. However, if you want to have more per fight survivability, you can swap them for electronics mods with health as a main stat. This will increase your toughness overall, though I do highly recommend skill haste. For all performance mods, make sure you're running Seeker Mine damage, as this will increase the frequency of one-shots, and this is non-negotiable. Seeker Mine damage in all performance mod slots is the best way to go. For weapon mods, just make sure you have an extended magazine and rate of fire on that magazine as well. Your gun is simply to stack up your Tacticians Authority bonus. It is not for dealing weapon DPS. The build revolves solely on the burst damage from Seeker Mine, and you're not actually going to be bursting down targets with your weapon. So again, you want increased mag size as high as possible, and then rate of fire is a secondary attribute. For skills, you want to be running Heal with Overdose and Seeker Mine with Airburst. That is where all the one-shots are going to come from. Now, if you want to perform more support responsibilities, you can switch out Overdose for Defib. That will provide more utility to your team. But if you want solo survivability and more one-shots, you will be running Overdose on your heal. For talents, I recommend Triage if you are in a squad, but if you're not and if you're playing by yourself, then you can switch that out for On the Move. And then the other three that I recommend are Critical Save to increase survivability, Strike Back to decrease cooldowns, and then the absolutely essential one is Death by Proxy, destroying a hostile deployed skill to increase skill power by 20% for 30 seconds. This will proc simultaneously with Talented to give you 35% increased skill power for 20 seconds, and then 20% for an additional 10 seconds from Death by Proxy. That's a huge amount of skill power when you destroy an enemy turret, an enemy Seeker Mine, or an enemy support station. That is extremely powerful, and I highly recommend running this, and you can achieve absurd skill power numbers with this build. Jumping into the gameplay, there's actually a couple of different things I want to touch on while the footage plays in the background. Number one, this build has a lot of potential and utility with many other skills other than just the Seeker Mine. As you can see there, I've only procced two bonuses. That's Tac Authority and then a proc of Talented from my weapon, and you can see over 550,000 skill power. This is extremely powerful. If you run a Sticky Bomb, there's huge amounts of damage to be had there. If you run a Pulse, that's a ton of critical hit chance and critical hit damage that your whole team is going to get. If you run something like a Support Station, as long as you properly mod your different performance mods to augment that skill, that's a huge amount of healing that you can output. This build and Tac Authority in general is extremely versatile, and this is not the only way to run the gear set. This is just the one specific version that hinges on Seeker Mine one-shots. Now, a lot of people, and this brings me to my second point, are going to hate the fact that they can get one-shotted by this. This can kill an enemy agent from 100% health down to 0% health in one shot, and a lot of people are going to despise that. They don't like getting hit by that, and I've definitely, felt that myself. There have been certain encounters where I didn't see it coming. I got hit by one of these, and I really wasn't happy about it. But at the same time, this mechanic is easily countered. There are multiple different ways to hard counter the Seeker Mines. Just off the top of my head, number one, building some EDR. Okay, let's say a lot of players don't want to do that. Okay, number two, shoot the Seeker Mine off of the ground so it detonates and doesn't actually deal damage. You can shoot the Seeker Mine before it gets to you and kill it, proccing your own bonuses, your own on-kill bonuses in the process. Number three, if you actually go into Final Measure and build either the 2-piece or the 4-piece, it's still going to have a tremendous impact, even if it's just the 2-piece, in mitigating the damage. But the 4-piece will actually disarm the Seeker Mines as they come in on top of you. This is a lot of different potential ways to counter one specific skill and one specific mechanic. So I actually have little to no sympathy for people that are going to come into the comment section, and I do guarantee you it will happen, saying things like, you're a trash skill build, you've ruined the DZ, why are you promoting this? This is so toxic. But I would like to put it out there that we've been doing a build video per day since the patch launched, and we're going to continue to kind of follow that format. We're going to keep putting out build videos. We're going to keep talking about individual mechanics because some people like to run them, and we do preach build diversity, and I do run as many different builds as I can create and get my hands on and utilize. This build is potentially a one-shot build. A lot of people may not like that. But if you don't like that, there are ways to spec your character and counter it. Again, you can build EDR, you can use a shield, you can shoot the Seeker Mine off the ground, just to name a few. And there are other, tactical ways to counter this build and to, achieve better results when fighting against it. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up. It is a very strong build. It is very fun to use. And to all you people that are probably slamming on the keys right now to call me something, some horrific name for putting out a one-shot Seeker Mine build video, I would like to remind you that I will be doing counter build videos to this in the future. I will be covering more different diverse mechanics, not just DPS builds, not just tank builds, but skill builds as well. So please keep that in mind and try not to, break your keyboard as you're freaking out over this one-shot mechanic in a video game. So take it easy, guys. Check out the links below if you want to support the channel. And as always, have a nice night.